So 2024, kind of a bit of a weird year in gaming so far when you look at what the big companies are doing. Sure, there's been lots of third-party games and they'll continue to be third-party games, but the first-party stuff has been a little bit questionable, I would say. What is Sony doing with the PlayStation 5? It doesn't seem like they have any first-party games, at least big games that they have coming out this year. Nintendo seems focused on smaller titles, remakes, and remasters, almost like a Switch 2 was supposed to come out, but Xbox was actually positioned in a decent way. We know about some games coming out this year. Games like Avowed, games like Indiana Jones, and games like Hellblade 2. Well, previews went up for Hellblade 2 today. There's a lot of controversy surrounding it, so I want to talk about that, and I also want to talk about another Xbox exclusive game that seems to be coming out this year, or at least being announced this year. There's been some teases for it, and I want to go over that as well. Hit that subscribe button, or I'll come to your house and pee on your front door. So here's a preview done based on the previews that went out today. We have the following information. Senua is traveling to Iceland to hunt down the Vikings that destroyed her home in the first game. Otherworldly creatures like Dragar and giants roam the land. Combat is similar to the first game, but impact of hits feels heavier. Fights are 100% motion captured. Parry windows appear less forgiving this time around. Increased variety of enemy types and attack animations. New ability, a handheld mirror that can temporarily slow down enemies to land combos. Puzzles are largely familiar. There are secrets hidden in the environment that can be discovered, and quieter moments where you can check in on allies. So I really liked the first Hellblade game. I thought it was fantastic. I didn't play it until it came out on the Switch because I wanted to make a video on it back when people cared about the Switch, and I really enjoyed my time with this game. And everything we've seen from this game so far has been pretty cool in my opinion. Like, yes, it's not going to reinvent the wheel of what the original Hellblade did, but making it better, you know, making the combat a bit better, making it feel heavier and stuff like that. Like, that's a good thing. And I didn't hate the combat in the first game either. I thought it was all right. You know, it was obviously more of a catalyst for the story, but I thought it was done well. So all of this sounds pretty decent. Seems like a bigger Hellblade 2. So what's the problem? Well, I might have skipped one of the things on the preview. Runs at 30 frames per second on Xbox Series X and S. Dynamic resolution, no performance mode. And people, and probably rightfully so to some degree, are losing their minds over this. They're like, why is it 30 frames per second? Why are games that are coming out in 2024, why is there no performance mode for this? And to me, this is just me speaking. I'm not going to say that anyone can't feel that way because there is a difference between 30 frames and 60 frames. I just talked about it in my Gran Turismo 2 remastered video that I made earlier in the day that nobody watched, but I kind of expected that. But to me, it kind of depends on the game. And when you look at the first Hellblade game, it wasn't a fast game. You know, it's a slow, plodding game. And I feel like that works in its favor to only be 30 frames per second. However, there probably should be a performance mode in this because, like I said, it just seems ridiculous that in the year 2024 on these next generation consoles, we're still not hitting, you know, these litmus tests that we have made that we were somewhat promised by the companies themselves and all of this power and stuff like that. But it seems like we're already capping these systems out. That makes, of course, an argument for the Pro systems. How much could they really sort of increase the ability of these consoles? I guess we'll have to wait and see because I'm sure there will be some revisions. Like the PS5 Pro seems like a foregone conclusion at this point in time. But it's kind of a shame because this is going to be the first Xbox big game of 2024. The marketing hasn't been great. There's an event happening in a few days to sort of showcase the game again. But it's kind of like we've seen a lot of this game, and I can't imagine it's going to be a very long game. Like, especially how story-driven it is and how it's not necessarily about the combat and stuff like that. It's more about the internal struggle of Senua and dealing with her, you know, mental issues and stuff like that, which makes it a really fun and unique game. But I just feel like, I don't know, this information kind of sets it up for that mindset of people to have, well, I don't want to play a 30 frames per second game. And like, there's a lot of people like that, and that's okay, especially when you're paying $500 for these consoles and expecting to have, you know, good performance out of these things. Is it okay for me personally? Like, yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine for my experience with the game, just because of the fact that, hey, the first Hellblade wasn't a game based on, fast frame rates. It's more of a slow and plodding game. This isn't like a racing game or something like that, or a platformer where 60 frames definitely makes a big difference. However, I'm not going to sit here and say that people that are upset by this don't have a right to be, because I don't know, man. Was it pointless to put out these consoles when we did? I still think so. But like I said, we do have some good Xbox news, because it seems like a big franchise will be making a splash potentially very, very soon. And this is a franchise that a lot of people have been wondering, well, kind of where it's went. It used to be a staple for the Xbox brand. It was at one point in time probably one of their strongest, if not their strongest brand. I think it's right up there with Halo in terms of the impact that it made and how popular it was, and that is Gears of War. One of the things that people have been wondering is there going to be a Gears of War 6? And it seems like there's going to be some sort of exclusive drop tomorrow happening about this. I believe Jeff Grubb will be going on Paris Lily's channel and talking about some Gears of War 6 exclusive thing happening tomorrow. And so those people don't like me. So, it is what it is. That's fine. But I do find this interesting, because this isn't the first time we've heard about Gears of War 6. We've heard about it from other people. Nate the Hate has talked about it like back in January and stuff like that. And it really seems like something that makes perfect sense. When it comes to modern multiplayer games, I really feel like there's not as much choice and there's not as much variety if you're not looking at the free-to-play stuff with the, microtransactions and all of that sort of stuff, which is definitely catered probably to a younger audience. We had a ton of Gears of War games come out during the last 2 generations, and then it's just been radio silent on it. And I understand you could play Gears of War 5 on your Xbox Series X with enhanced visuals and stuff like that, but people that have already played that game to death, they're probably looking forward to something new within that franchise. And Gears of War 5 was probably one of the best looking games of the last generation. So if this is being built from the ground up for the Xbox Series X and S, I feel like you might see some really good visual fidelity here. I guess you could sort of wonder, are we going to get 30 frames per second? I'm sure it won't be 30 frames per second. But obviously, this is a big marquee title. And if they're able to somehow get this game out in 2024, like, that's my only sort of holdup with this, is that, we might get some information on it. But I can't imagine that they would have talked about Indiana Jones before talking about Gears of War 6, if indeed Gears of War 6 is coming out this year. Because if anything, it seems like Indiana Jones has that potential to be put into 2025, more so than the other games that we know about. Obviously, Hellblade 2, that release date is already locked in. I'm sure Avowed will be fine as well, but it's very interesting. It's a very interesting time for Xbox. And I feel like, some of this is spurned on from these journalists that were talking about Starfield coming to PlayStation 5 and it's coming soon and stuff like that, which, it's really not fair to the Xbox brand. I feel how that whole situation kind of played out. But to me, it's just another sort of damper on what Xbox is doing. Hellblade, people are going to be seeing that for Hellblade 2. They're going to be seeing that 30 frames per second attached to the game, and it's going to sway their opinion on the game. Me personally, it's a $50 game. It's also available on Game Pass. Like, I didn't expect it necessarily to be like a fast action game like a Stellar Blade, which I did finally play the Stellar Blade demo. Really good game. The parrying system is kind of weird and you kind of got to get used to it. But once you get used to it, it's a very enjoyable game, and I didn't jerk off a single time. Let me know in the comments section down below. What do you think about this whole situation? Would you be excited for Gears of War 6? Or is Hellblade 2 at 30 frames per second, is that going to sway your decision on whether or not to play this game? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It really comes down to personal preference. And remember, folks, I am your favorite Xbox YouTuber. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, or I will pee on your front door. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Go watch the Gran Turismo 2 remastered video. I see you slacking out there. Later.